What's a human? Yikes. As many of you have already guessed, this question gets really messy. But why? Why does it get messy? Well, we'll get into some definitions and then you'll see. So, some definitions. Let's start from the Isle of Man in the sea between England and Ireland. Want to? Sometime around the 7th century. Let's go back 1,400 years to the Isle of Man. That's an actual place today. You can go. Here's how they may have defined a human being. Human beings are the survivors of the events of Ragnarok. That's the great war between the gods of the Norse. You see, the two survivors of those crazy god wars were Lif and Lifthrasir, man and woman. And they seem to have given birth to humans, and it is the goal of these humans to appease and stay in alignment with the victorious gods of the Ragnarok. That's the Great War. So human beings here are survivors, and they're in the business of appeasement. Let's go to Nicaea. That's a town in modern-day Turkey. The year's 323 or so. So it's about 1,700 years ago. Okay? They might have said something, these people there might have said, a human being is by grace what Christ is by nature. So something to do with logos, the word of God. A human being is the word, the spirit of truth, the image of the creator. Something like God became man, so man can become like God. Okay, how about northern India, say about 900 BC? 900 BC, or about 3,000 years ago. Humans. Human beings are consciousness, or Atman, or soul. This Atman is the inner life, while Brahma is the outer reality. The creator, Brahma is the creator bursting forth in the form of creation. So the goal of a human being is to unite Atman and Brahma, inner and outer. You find that in northern India about 3,000 years ago. How about the Arabian Peninsula? Let's go there. Let's go back to the late 600s, about 1,300 years ago. You might have heard something. Human beings are uniquely endowed creatures. Beings with spirit of God indwelling. Rational creations able to perfect themselves because they have divine qualities. And let's go 2,500 years into the past. Want to? This is from the Chinese mainland around 550 BC. You might have heard this about humans. Humans are believed to be the children of the Tao. To live fully, humans should try and live as the mediator between heaven and earth. The goal of a human being is to radiate purity, innocence, and simplicity, which is like the Tao. Oh, but we're not done. Here's one more. Let's go back to the Enlightenment. About 350 years ago, this comes from John Locke, a political philosopher, a very, very light person. And on this show, you know that a light person is someone who thinks and lives and breathes the Enlightenment. Probably all of us on this pod, right? That very unique time period where rational thought and rationalism became very important. Well, here's John Locke saying something like this. Human beings are by nature free. That's our nature. We are not subjects, and we are not a subject to the king. He argued that people have natural rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and property, and that these rights are not bound by culture. They're universal, right? They're not subject to variations in culture. You don't lose them because you move somewhere. The point of life for Locke and other enlightened philosophers was to apply reason to perfect society so human beings could flourish in freedom. John Locke, about 350 years ago. And now here's one from 8 minutes ago from biologyonline.com. Okay, it's the source. I Googled it. Check it out. A human is a bipedal hominid characterized by having higher and more vertical foreheads compared with earlier hominids. The brain volume is about 1,400 cubic centimeters. The human teeth and jaw are smaller, and the chin is prominent. Humans are the hominids capable of creating and using complex tools, solving problems by using their reason. Oh, there's reason. And there's biology.com, the bipedal hominid. Okay. Why are we doing this again? Can we go back? Oh, these were types of definitions of what a human is because we're trying to figure out what a human right is. India, Turkey, we went around the world. So what did you see? What did you find? There's lots of stuff going on here. I noticed a pattern, and any half historian like myself can see the same pattern, and not just because you're on this pod. It's really easy in history. It's just a fact. The old human anthropologies always related humanity, your being, your ontology, your essence, to something bigger, more divine, something more perfect than the human in himself or herself. All the old world anthropologies put the human being in some sort of relationship with his or her maker. Today, in the enlightened cult of the West, not so much. That cult has defined human beings as being independent and free, which has come to include free from God, which, if you think about it, might be a pretty good thing if your God is, say, Zeus or Thor. I mean, those dudes, they come at you pretty hard, those gods. So the Enlightenment is freeing people, not just from God, but from all types of things, even from nature. And so after perusing these definitions, let's head back to the meat of the pod. You want to? Let's do it. What is a human? Done. We're not done with that, but kind of done. What is a human right? What is a right? You know, there's really not much talk about rights until the Enlightenment. It's not really even a way of thinking. How do these things work? Do we inherit them from our parents? Right? Do we inherit them from our gods or from our textbooks or something? Where did they come from? Where do they reside? I mean, shouldn't rights just be obvious if we all have them? Like, all of us sort of understand what a chair is because all of us have butts. You know, if you got to explain a chair to somebody, it's kind of weird. Shouldn't we all sort of get what a right is? Because we're all human. I told you this was going to get messy. Well, I think what's going on is an attempt to make a sacred set of principles, all of them directed at the individual, all of them emanating from the individual, and all of them meant to protect you and I from, pick your choice, but often in our tradition from the government or often from other people. What you see in these documents is a type of New World religious text, a sacred canon of deistic and atheistic first principles. These principles are a way to make human beings aware of their essence, of their unique nature as humans, and it is a universal way, all of us. A new way that includes all the old ways. You see, it includes the Christian way and the Hindu way and the Norse way because it includes something that in the end the light people want to call universal. And this human right, universal being thing is not connected to the divine. Not in the light people culture. It's us. These rights are us, our essence. They're in us. They're created by us. They're for us. They're for me. What we are witnessing in these universal documents is light people UFC cage match fighting the divine. They're fighting against the divine, trying to create meaning outside of the divine. We're witnessing New World thinkers separating themselves from the eternal and the infinite, defining our unique and otherworldly essences as, well, coming from ourselves, from within. The four next loop. What we're seeing is the degradation of a flawed old world, a world where God was present in us, but it didn't seem to matter. It didn't seem to make the world any better. So light people began to transform it into a world where God was nearby, the deists, Locke and Jefferson and all those folks who thought there was a God, just not an important one. And then finally into a world where we are utterly our own, a bipedal hominid with about 1,400 cc's of brain space and good writing habits. Rational four-necked loopers whose last frontier is the eradication of the irrational. What these documents try and do is define what is most important about us, our rights, by defining it for ourselves. Period. In that way, a human right, the thing we hear so much about on all these news channels, is just a bookmark. In that way, a human right is a bookmark, a temporary way of saying, this is what is important to us today for now, until I get back to my book and start turning new pages and creating new rights. Human rights make for actionable stuff and practical answers for next loop, for now. But these rights, are they actually in alignment with reality? Are these rights actually really real? Are they actually universal? I don't think so. I actually don't think anyone thinks so. I don't think anyone reads the document and thinks this applies to all human beings for all times. Not even a little. I mean, not if you really think about it. Most of us know that these rights are just light people working hard to create a utilitarian solution to the vexing ontological and existential questions all of us have faced since the beginning of time. And I think we've reached an answer to today's pod question. Human rights are the words we've decided to write on a parchment paper. Holy script words that describe who we think we are. These are just sacred texts for a de-sacred world, a desacralized world, a non-God world. And maybe, just maybe, these new scrolls are better scrolls. I'm serious. They might be better scrolls. Maybe the new God, the self-love God, is a better God. Maybe. I mean, I guess it depends on who your God is. Is the new God of self better than the old God of the Norse? The God on the cross? Brahma? Well, I think that's the cool part of this pod. I mean, I think. Who is your God? That's interesting. We should talk about it as a culture. And why can't we? Should be something we can do. It's heavy, but we can do it lightly. I think we can. And guess what? We are. And let's keep doing it. On Why Are We Talking About Rabbits? This was about human rights.